Can I get your attention for a minute? So we are settling in slowly, I hope. My name is Anna Weichsel. I'm the chair of the Woodstock Neighborhood Association.
Senate too. My name is Tash Mono. I'm on the board for the Neighborhood Association, but then also the co-chair of the Land Use Committee.
So, and for obvious reasons, we decided to combine our meetings since we didn't have a general neighborhood association meeting in January, and we had quite an impact on emails, and we decided that we should hold this meeting here. We do have the setup hybrid, so we need to figure out how to orderly manage this. We have Brett, who is our vice chair of the neighborhood association, who tries hard to manage. So because there are so many people, we are not going around to have everybody introduce. One thing, we have a sign-in sheet that's going around. Please make sure you put your name and your contact in. Another brief thing, since there are so many people and I know there are a lot of emotions in the rooms, in these rooms and in these rooms. I just want to make sure that please, if you speak, be gentle, be straight to the point, don't take a lot of time up, listen what others have to say, and give room to a lot of input that we can all get. Also, I hope we're going to be joined by two of our public officials, one state representative elect, or now state representative Mark Gamba, and also Skye from the senior policy advisor from the mayor's office. The letter for sure on that.
Yes, yeah, Skye will be joining us online at about 7:15, 7:20. Yeah, I think the goal is just to get input from the state level, what funding's been allocated, what's going on, what legislation they're working on now. And then Skye said she'd be happy to speak to what's going on Metro, the county, kind of joint task force, and then what the mayor has been working on and some of the declarations he made as of late.
Right, and a note about wanting to speak, please raise your hand in the room, or please use the raise hand feature on Zoom, and we'll call in the order we see them, and they should be in order of raising of hands online, but we'll try to also pick an order of who raised their hand first. And please, online people, please keep your microphones muted when not in use, and when you're called on to speak, please unmute yourself. And then when you're done speaking, please mute yourself.
One thing maybe about the communication that led to all this, I was totally overwhelmed with the amount of emails that was coming, and each email was crying out, important update, important update. I had within 3 days, 500 emails slamming my inbox. That's not good communication. Whereas I know it needs very, very close and very intense communication between the people who have that huge impact. Please make sure that you have some person identified who makes that very distinct contact to the neighborhood association, because it is a channel of how we facilitate our communication for the whole neighborhood. I have been dealing with very similar problems in other areas of our neighborhood, and it was always a very direct one-on-one person contact, and we could actually organize a very civilized, good connection to the city, to get help, and also to have a communication within our neighborhood and to direct people to the correct points of interaction. I know the city has been failing on so many ends to actually help us. But trust me, I have been working on this for 2.5 years intensely, also with Southeast Uplift, with the Office of Civic Life, and with city officials. So I totally understand the problems, but please, for the future, communicate very distinctly, because at some point I'm not looking at anything that says for the 100th time, important new, whatever. It's not working. Okay.
Okay, maybe before we begin, feel free to grab any refreshments. For those at the back, if it does get stuffy, you can crack these windows. Yeah. Any questions on protocol or?
I have one other note on protocol. Are we keeping a list of the people in the chat? Should they put their name in the chat? Good. So people on Zoom, please go ahead and put your name in the chat, so that way we can record that you're here. It's a little bit easier if we do it that way.
And then if you could copy that and email it to me.
Yeah, I'll get it to you. Contact information on there's a checklist going around. I think you can put your email, or if you wanna.
And then,
We stopped doing that, I think, right? Sonia,
Yes.
are we stopping requesting information on Zoom? Requesting like contact information, or just getting names?
Well, yeah, I just put in names.
Okay, yeah, just to see who was here. All right. Thank you very much.
okay, well, you want to take a seat? You want to stand?
No, we should sit, otherwise it looks so.
Formal.
Oh, no.
Smart things on here.
No, and I don't know, Brett,
I have the whole list here. I can show you who's here, but it's really tiny.
I guess for you online, do you know if we have State Rep Gamba's representative? Or Mark is online?
Feel free to raise your hand if you're from I guess either office, the state or the city.
Yes, Skye should be logging in about 7:20,
Oh, okay.
7:15, 7:20.
There's more chairs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Here.
Excuse me. Approximately how many people were online, please?
Well, we have 28 participants in the meeting right now. We were planning is gonna be pretty big.
Here, I guess, when you add them up.
Yeah, we planned for quite a few. Because a lot of communications, there's a lot of concern, and people want to be part and contribute to the community, and I know that's why you're here. So we want to make it a safe place for them. And do what we can.
Well, I think in the interim, I'm waiting for the representative to log on. Do we want to open it up to sort of more of a forum, or do you want to?
Well, I think,
Agenda. Anything else? you wanna
what do
say?
you,
That time is off, by the way. Don't trust my clock.
It's later.
oh,
Yeah, it's,
Oh, it's
no, I think we should just start. I don't know who was, I mean, Barbara, I know you were very vocal, and maybe you can give us a stuff. I don't want to put you on the spot. We need someone from that group to actually summarize for everybody what the situation was, and why you started to be involved in calling that meeting.
What's that group and what's that meeting?
Only me. Sorry, you want to.
So, okay, so, beginning of December, a camper, one of those, campers, parking lot in front of our house, and we had a generator, a very loud generator, and we tried everything, call city, blah, blah, blah. And, eventually, we called the police at night, and eventually they left. I think they just felt molested by us. We made them leave without getting the city involved. And then they pulled it up behind Safeway, where were a lot of encampments already. I guess they wanted to blend in there. And I didn't have the generator running anymore, but a couple of us, we have gotten together, found out how the city system works. And we found out that we have to send emails to report TDX and pictures, etc. That's the most effective way. Then the city has a a rating system, and we were at like a rating about 50. And other encampments were rating 75, so it looked like our the encampment here was very kind of low key. So we kept emailing the city, and we kept filing police reports, which also brings up the score for any encampment. And so eventually we achieved that the camp was cleared. And most of the vehicles are gone from there, but a couple of vehicles that belong to some drug dealers, and I saw the drug dealers in front of my house. I saw their routine and everything. They're still on 41st now. It looks better now. The neighborhood is, cleaned up for now, but so there's still remainders, and it's probably gonna feel again we're attractive as a neighborhood because there's services around, there's a supermarket, and there's a lot of parking. And so the question is, how do we proceed from here? And so the group, our group got bigger and bigger, and I just started a Google list, and I'm gonna pass around a sheet if anybody's not in the group yet and wants to join.
Is our group a thing? I just don't know who you are, what the group is. Is it a name? Is it just people you know?
It started in our corner. I live at the corner of 41st and Ramona, and I just started organizing people and sending emails and finding out how to proceed and what to do. So it's just pure neighborhood activists.
It's an email group, so it's purely information. So this had happened in different parts of the neighborhood before, where there have been instances of, problematic
It's next door.
encounters. Yeah, we could call it that.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we are all understanding what the problems are. So of course, when we are close to the shopping center and close to the schools, we need to be aware that that has a huge impact of our public safety and public interactions. But I want to make sure that we are all understanding we have a huge houseless crisis. These people need to be somewhere, and we need to ask the city to find places for them. But then there's a second associated issue, and that's the crime issue and the drug dealing issue. And I want to make sure that we are talking about the same things and that we are on the same page of what we can do about some parts and what we can not do on other parts, and who needs to be addressed in that structure. Yes.
Can I please help reframe that a little bit? Because crime, petty crime, drug dealing, different level crime, but to me, there's another issue, and it's not just the presence of noise, it is simply how manifestly unclean things look. And I don't just mean a health code thing, I mean from a mental, cognitive load, emotional sense, is that I lived in really smaller cities, and I don't want this to be Laurelhurst. So it's a thing, I just want to show it's a different thing, other than just crime. Curious.
Yeah, hi, I'm Steve Carpels. A lot of you probably seen my name on the email list. I just wanted to add a little more background to it, Barbara. First of all, going back about a year and a half ago, we did have an email sort of group that got together, and we got, at that time, we got Commissioner Mingus Matz on a Zoom call. There were about 60 or 70 of us on that. It was very effective. And we did get the neighborhood cleaned up. And then within a month or two, we started to see RVs return. And as most of you know, up until the cleanup last Thursday, we had about 20 RVs, about 15 tents, broken vans, drug dealing going on in several places that many of us have experienced, Barbara did in particular. I met Barbara about 3 or 4 weeks ago when she called a Sunday meeting with Representative Rob Noce, who was very helpful. He had a lot of contacts. And I'm thrilled that Representative Gamba is here tonight so that you can carry on. That got us started, and as Barbara said, we learned a lot. The crime, besides drug dealing, the thing that is most concerning, and I hope you don't mind me saying, Marie, but Marie and her neighbor, Deborah Kelly, Deborah's had 5 home intrusions, Marie's had 2. This to me is a very serious crime when people are starting to break in your house. We've had somebody go into our storage shed, that's more petty crime, but still, it's just concerning. We live on Ellis, so that's already a couple blocks away, and they've gone into our shed. I come out in the morning and had wagons of garbage sitting right in front of my driveway. So that speaks to your issue as well. We have been successful in getting it cleaned up, but what we really want to talk about tonight is where do we go from here and how do we, because you can see within literally 3 hours, we had another tent on 43rd Street. There were 3 cars that returned. I personally talked to them and took pictures. They came and got quite angry with me. They said, "What are you doing?" I told them what I was doing. Many of the vehicles that were here are currently sitting on steel next to Reed. They're on 41st, they're on 26th, 28th. So it is a whack-a-mole game. And I mean, every morning I go out to walk the dog and I'm thrilled that we got through one more day, but this is not a long-term solution.
So there's
Sonia?
Yeah, so, a little over a year ago, we were doing the same thing on 41st, because it was way out of control. With car chop shop, bike chop shop, drug dealing and so on. Same thing, and we at that time, because I've been on the neighborhood board for a while, we did post on the WNA website some of the contact information, and we may not have updated it since the mayor did the emergency declarations, and we should do that where you use PDX reporter and call 311. Because that does get you in the queue, so to speak. And then 1-800 got junk. There was a specific there that they could come through and sweep trash. They won't if it's kind of clearly belonging to somebody, but if it's just abandoned trash, they'll do that. So when the vehicles moved out from beside US Bank a long time ago, 6 months ago now, I called and there was a huge pile and they were there within the same day and they took the whole pile of stuff. So it was about the size of a V-Dub. So anyway, so there's some resources on there, and I'll Emery and I can talk and we can make sure that we've got the updated information on the Woodstock Neighborhood Association website.
We could do that again. Also, that particular group also engaged with I think it's now called Neighbors Together city office. And they received really great help in understanding how to engage safely and when to, how to organize yourself. I mean, you did a pretty good job amongst itself, but that's basically the core of keeping neighborhoods working, that you know one another and that you're also present, taking care right in your tiny little corner of the neighborhood. But how to do that safely under those circumstances, it's sometimes really worthwhile to get help from professionals who can actually tell you how to do so. So I highly recommend that too.
Do you want to mention the cleanup group that we have going on too?
Yeah, we also have it's called Saturday. Third Saturday cleanup, but it moved to the second Saturday and sometimes to another day of the week.
Woodstock walk.
It's Woodstock Walk and Clean, and we also got contacted by I think the elementary school, right? The Woodstock elementary school. Who want to join, who want to get the kids and the parents alerted to it, and also help and be engaged and understand that cleanup and walking and being out and about. Just to be present.
That's, you can get more information at the woodstockpdx.org website. We also have an email, cleanup@woodstockpdx.org. We have a question.
Yes, it's a comment really. My name is Peggy Baroth. I live across from the east side. The crime is really bad. Last February 24th, all 3 of our cars were stolen in one night. One night. The police never came to interview us. There was cell phones in the vehicle. There was plenty of evidence, tons of evidence. And another time and place, people would have been put in jail, but nobody even came. Nobody even came. Two of the cars were totaled for fentanyl and meth. Just from having so much inside, it was a biohazard. That was so disconcerting, it's like, we don't have a lot of power, and I'm here because I wanna try and take back some of that power. But the way I've had to do it is become hyper vigilant, which isn't good for anyone's health, you know? Having to be hyper vigilant and locking everything down and being triggered constantly by people that go by your house real slow, or, I mean, it's just. Yeah, it's not a fun place to live anymore. I'm not ready to, yeah, bump in the night. I'm not ready to give up on Portland, but I want to find a way to take back our city. And I want the city to start being accountable to the people that pay their tax.
Yes, I agree, and I think there is a question of how we get that accountability back, because I don't think that's actually a safe way for us to be the ones who take care of what we are facing with. And maybe that's a good lead to hand over to our
Yeah.
state representatives.
I think, yeah, in the interest of time, we'll first, why don't we, pass it to you, State Representative Gamba.
So we can do a
You
share.
want to chair? You want to gavel? I don't have a gavel.
We have.
Black out my.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for joining.
So, just to make sure we set the stage here a little bit. I've been on the job for
48 hours.
yeah, about 48 hours really, and the session started 48 hours ago. I was sworn in a week ago. Up until recently, for those of you that don't know me, I was the mayor of Milwaukee. You will notice that Milwaukee is not having the same problems.
Yes.
Our police response time averages 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Wow.
1 minute. Fastest in the state.
Why do you think that is?
A lot of that is that we did not lose any of our police force because we had a good working relationship with our police force. We were solving the problems that caused Portland to blow up 8 years ago. It was one of the first things I did when I became mayor. So that's, I'm stepping into this, right, with that background. I am the vice chair of housing and homelessness. So as far as long-term solutions, as far as, you know, really starting to address the core issues of this, that's the work, that is the focus of frankly, the state this year. It's the focus of Tina Kotek. It's the focus of the speaker. It's the focus of the majority leader. It's actually the focus of the minority leader. So I think there's a distinct possibility that we will actually move the needle a little bit. Now, that said, right, sine die is next summer. That is the absolute earliest that anything changes. Because literally no money can move, no laws change, nothing happens until I think it's even on emergency ones, it's like X number of days past that because the governor has to sign them, et cetera, et cetera. So none of this is like fixing it tomorrow. Just so that we set expectations. I recognize where you guys are at. I recognize the pain. I recognize the discomfort, right? All of you are human. All of you see the despair in the people that are causing the issues that you're concerned about, and your world is dramatically less good. To put it as kindly as I can. I get all that. It's complicated. And frankly, this was a long time coming. I mean, we have a society countrywide, because this is not a Portland only problem. This is a USA problem. Where we've allowed wages to stagnate. And we've allowed housing to just skyrocket. We've done some really stupid things around not causing more housing to be built faster. There's a lot in that, right? And to tell you the truth, it's not going away. There is no one I mean, I've proposed a bill that's gonna cause great uproar. So I won't even talk about it, but unless we do something at that level where we're really changing the dynamic of the economics of the way this is working, we essentially have a conveyor belt to homelessness in this state and in virtually every other state in this country. That said, it is the focus of the state this year, so there will be a lot of rent assistance, there will be a lot of efforts to get new housing built. There will be work on getting more temporary shelter facilities. There's going to be a lot of things. We are already trying to begin to coordinate with Portland and work with the mayor to help make some of what he's trying to do actually work. Very early days on all that. I do think the distinct problem that should be very fixable more quickly is the crime that you're talking about. It is still utterly against the law to sell drugs. Against the law. It's against the law to steal cars and chop shop. It's against the law, you know, all of those things are actually still against the law. And the police should be arresting people. No question. Wheeler says that they are recruiting at a really high rate of speed. There's actually a training bottleneck at this point. There's not enough training facilities for the number of cops that they have coming up. That's one of the bills actually that we have, is to potentially create another training facility up in Portland. Again, it's not going to solve the problem next week. It's going to be, you know, a year out at best. I wish I had something I could tell you that was like, okay, in a month, it's going to all be better. I don't. I mostly came here tonight to listen because I want to understand your experiences. I heard a lot of the same stuff when I was knocking doors, you know, since March. So none of this is news to me per se, but specifics are always good. And when we're in committees and when we're having conversations with other legislators, having specific stories that we can relate that help humanize the why of why are we going to spend X number of millions of dollars doing this thing, and why are we going to, right? It's always helpful to bring human stories that help them understand. So that's a lot of why I'm here tonight. I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah, all right. So Nose would be actually the perfect person to really dig into that. I know just enough to be dangerous. They committed over $1.3 billion, if I'm remembering the ballpark numbers, over the last two sessions. A big chunk of that was supposed to go towards Measure 110 efforts to get people treatment. That came out incredibly slowly, like slower than anybody imagined it would. It is finally just now really starting to hit the streets. It's starting to get to the providers, so they're able to start ramping up and to be able to treat young people. So again, not going to happen tomorrow, but we should start to see some changes there. Some of that money was to actually pay the people who do that work a living wage. There were a lot of those people that were doing that work that had these huge they have 60 or 80 clients, and they were being paid enough where they qualified for food stamps. So a lot of that money goes to that, which is causing us to now retain more people. We were losing mental health professionals like crazy across the board. And then there's a third bucket that I'm aware of that is going into facilities, getting the facilities fixed up, getting more beds. Not enough. I will tell you this right now. We need to be investing in more facilities for long-term care. Oregon has fallen so far behind. We are last in the nation, literally last in the nation on mental health care. So that's a piece. I know there are more bills this year. I don't know what they are. I was handed a stack today that's about this thick, and that was just outlines of bills. And I didn't have time to read it before tonight, but there is more in the offing, and Rob would be the guy to really be able to dig into that, because that's his committee. He is running the committee that is doing it. So that's the best I can give you on that.
What's the status on creating camps for the homeless? Because these people need to go somewhere, evidently.
Yes, absolutely. There, Wheeler.
We have a representative from Wheeler's office.
Perfect.
Skye will be speaking to that, I think.
Excellent.
Skye's on right now.
I will let them answer that question, because I would just be repeating what I heard in a meeting a week ago, which would be very superficial at this point. So if you got a team member,
Yeah, we'll hold that for.
that's better.
So, I actually worked in Multnomah County. 20 years ago, there was an initiative to deinstitutionalize people, which was a good thing, because we had people wrongly institutionalized, whether it was the MR, those that had cognitive and then those with mental health. But at any rate, the foundation of that was supposed to be, they were supposed to be doing community-based facilities, which could be some supported housing, group home, that kind of thing. And so they took people out of the institutions, but they never built the community-based, and that's what still needs. Versus the big state hospital, you need a whole bunch of local communities, so they can be close to family and friends that they have, because it's not like people don't have family and friends just because they have a mental illness. So that's, part of where we fell down, and then we keep digging that hole deeper. So that's still what needs to happen.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And again, this is a realm that I know just enough to be dangerous about, but we are not getting the federal funding that other states are getting in this realm, for the reason that we are not, or have not been, creating the small facilities that you're describing, that the federal government prescribed. I do not know why we haven't been doing that.
Is there use prevention for mental health issues? Like, I know there's a huge impact on mental health issues within the youth that's being discussed. And it's, just on that edge before you actually need medical attention. But is there a larger program in play as well?
So I know some of the bills that are out there are to try and get more behavioral health care workers in schools. That is an effort that's desperately needed. You talk to people in schools, running schools, and there's like one mental health care professional for like 5 big schools, which is insanity. If a kid has a problem, it's 4 months before they can get it, so hopefully, again, and also keep in mind, you guys, this state has deeper problems that affect all of these things, right? So we have a 2-legged tax stool, right? Almost every other state in the union has property tax, sales tax, and income tax. And it's divided out so that, and they sort of balance each other somewhat, right? When one thing is down, another one might be up to help balance. We have a 2-legged stool, and we cut one of the legs off. with measures 5 and 50. So all of the things we're trying to do are based literally on income tax, and that's it. And that is down in this coming, plus the kicker. We're going to give back $3.8 billion last estimate I saw. 3 point.
That's a state.
Because we all voted for that apparently back whenever that happened. I wasn't here.
I just have a suggestion. I don't know who to make this to, but my daughter went to medical school. The state of Oregon paid for her medical school. She owes the state of Oregon 5 years in an underserved area. Is there any way, or I don't know, like the state could consider like mental health professionals subsidizing their education for every year that they work? And a nonprofit organization, they get some of their debt canceled. That would, number one, stop a brain drain from people getting an education in Oregon and leaving. It would make them want to stay. And there's just so many ways that pays back.
Yeah, no, that's
And I
great.
don't know who can make that suggestion.
I'm actually probably a good person to make it. The state representative kind of is the area, right? So that would be a bill that we would pass. And it's ringing a bell, frankly. So here's my ask, because I've been at this since 6 o'clock this morning,
Yeah.
same thing yesterday. I'm tired.
I
By the time I wake up tomorrow morning, I will have forgotten. So please email me with that, just an outline of that suggestion.
Okay.
It's rep.markgamba at oregonlegislature.gov. And you can find it pretty easily on the state's website. But any suggestions you have, please feel free to reach out. I've got a great team and we will check and see if there is already a bill, because there are something like 1,800 bills already filed. So there may well be a bill that does exactly what you're saying.
We have someone online who, David Groff, who has his hand raised.
Okay,
Yes, Representative Gamba, is there, under the 110 in the environment created by Measure 110, is there any way of ensuring that an attic on the street goes into treatment? I've heard complaints from police officers that they can't compel them anymore because small amounts of drugs are no longer illegal. And so they've lost that instrument by which they could try to divert some of these folks into the treatment that they need.
that is pretty much an accurate description of the process. I believe it's $100 fine. And then theoretically, they're meant to be encouraged to seek treatment. They're meant to be offered opportunities, offered places to go, rides to get there, all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure where the microphone is, so I'm sorry.
You're fine.
Okay.
I think we have a comment from Skye on this.
Okay.
Oh, I was just gonna say it's up to $100 fine, so most folks aren't actually fined, and then it's a citation, but that doesn't necessarily always come with a fine, so that's kind of where the stick issue is. There's not like a really enforcement policy written into the bill.
Right, and this is, this is a philosophical question that the people who created this wrestle with, and the legislature has been wrestling with, I know. There are a lot of folks who know people who have been addicts, and they know that they're not going to get the treatment unless they are eventually forced to do it. The model that Oregon, the creators of 110 were aiming at was the Portugal model. We did like a third of what Portugal did. So the folks from Portugal have come over and spoken, and I'm hearing this, so it's the secondhand. Skye may have actually been in that meeting when they were here. But what I'm told is one of their biggest criticisms of our system is that we do not have universal health care. So if somebody gets the treatment, and what they were doing was maybe self-medicating for pain, maybe they had some chronic pain thing, and they were self-medicating for pain, and they get drug treatment, and now they're back in their life, maybe that's on the streets, maybe that's in a job or something, and they still have the pain. And there's no, if they're poor, or particularly if they're in that middle space, right, between what the Oregon Health Plan covers and the folks that can actually afford healthcare, there's also a group of people that don't qualify for the Oregon Health Plan, but really can't afford healthcare. So that there's still that window of people, and their thing was, you're not solving this problem unless you can treat the whole human. And we fail on both a physical level, and as we've already talked about, on the mental health care level.
As I understand it, Mark, it's 1% of people elect to go to rehab.
In the
1%.
currently right now, I would give it, and I know this sounds crazy, but I would give it another year, because up till now, there really hasn't been any treatment available, or not nearly the level and kinds of treatment that we need. There are some pretty interesting groups out there doing some pretty serious, like they're out on the street talking to people and working with people, and they are people that used to be on the street.
And all of those people went to rehab instead of going to jail.
Yeah.
Everyone I know who was once an addict, who is now an upstanding citizen, that is the case. They were forced
That's
into rehab.
probably
And they would
correct,
not.
just based on the timing.
I know one of the new resources, Multnomah County put together the Behavioral Health Resource Center, and that's led by people who have gotten out of those situations. And so they have experience in how being in that situation and also getting out of it. So that's another resource that just opened up here, actually last year in December. So hopefully we'll also see some benefit from that over time.
Yeah, we brought somebody on down in Milwaukee, that same thing, a peer counselor who's gone on to get training in a variety of social services, and it's really been effective. So hopefully that will also work really well for Multnomah.
Just one quick thing, I guess in the interest of time, Skye, can I go ahead and introduce you? Skye Brocker-Knapp is from the mayor's staff. She's a senior policy advisor. I think she's gonna be speaking to kind of what's going on at the metro level. I guess, the metro level, the county level, and then also the city level. And some of the stuff that Mayor Wheeler's been working on. But I guess if there's any other specific questions for State Rep Gamba, you can feel free to.
I don't know how to do this with you.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, are there any numbers available in surveys of percent of the homeless who are mentally ill or financially strapped, they lost their job, they lost their home? So do we have any numbers like that?
We don't have a current study that I'm aware of. Skye, something more current. About 4 or 5 years ago, Health, Housing and Human Services in Clackamas County put together a team to talk to the people that were on the Springwater Corridor at the time. There was a big project around the Springwater Corridor. They ended up interviewing 25%, which is, when you're doing polling work, that's a really robust population. And what they kind of learned, and this is broad strokes, but most of the men who were homeless because their income no longer afforded them a place to live. Most of the women who were homeless were there because they were escaping an abusive relationship. Almost 90-some-odd% of the people on the corridor were practically living within, they could almost point to the last place they were housed. So the rumor that all these people are coming from Ohio or whatever, wherever people think is happening, was not true within that study. We also learned, I believe, and again, this is 5 years ago, that a lot of the people, when they became homeless, were neither felt like they had mental health issues nor drug addiction issues. And those became part of their life the longer they were homeless, which you can well imagine, right? You're in this horrible state of despair. you are going to have mental health issues and eventually you're going to try and probably self-medicate that. So it's kind of a vicious cycle, but I think it would be great to let Skye talk and then as the questions come in, one or the other of us will be more appropriate person to answer.
Yeah, I can just shed a little bit of light. So the point in time count is a federally required for us to get HUD funding. In the state, we have to conduct a point in time count every other year. There was a gap because of COVID from 2019 to 2022. So the most recent point in time count is from last January. We're doing another one in 2 weeks. So that's really the data that's relied upon for a lot of this, like homeless services and homeless funding. It's a notorious undercount, but folks are surveyed and actually self-report. And I will say it's 40% plus that report a mental and behavioral health, physical health issue on the streets from that most recent report. The unsheltered population was counted at 3,037 folks. Again, a notorious undercount. I think if I were to guess, I've been doing this a year, and from all my research and just interactions with different folks and working with different service providers on the ground, I would say we probably have 5,000 to 6,000 folks living unsheltered on the streets. So I see it's probably about double that. We're obviously working with a population that's not monolithic. So lots of different folks with lots of different needs, and we need to address all those different pieces on the spectrum. You folks have had some great questions and I've really appreciated listening thus far. I'll just say quickly, when I was brought on last year, we focused almost immediately on some emergency declarations. That was my job, tasked with writing those and implementing those. We stood up the Street Services Coordination Center, which runs kind of the impact reduction program and also the PBOT Transportation Vehicle Inspection Program and Abandoned Autos Program. So those folks work really hard every day, lots of firefighters and different police officers and different city officials and folks who are cleaning up and working with contractors to clean up streets and post encampments removals and also remove autos and RVs throughout the city of Portland. But obviously we know that there's more than probably 800 different camps scattered across the city. We do about between 50 and 70 camp removals a week. Those include camps that usually have about 3 or more tents and then a lot of them with vehicles as well. We are working obviously on implementing the resolutions that were passed by City Council in November. That's what I'm working on every day. We'll work on after this call as well. So one of those, and the one that I was kind of most in charge of, is the third resolution, which is focused on creating designated camping locations, connecting folks to services, creating an outreach team to do our own outreach, create access to kind of data and synthesize that and actually develop a system of care. It's also how we could implement a ban to unsanctioned camping in like 18-month period is kind of what we outlined. But we're obviously working very hard to create some designated camping locations. So I can offer just had meetings today, we'll have meetings tomorrow, we'll have meetings on Friday, working very hard to quickly stand up those designated camping sites. I had an RFP, which is a request for proposal, close last night for service providers. So they were able to apply, and then I will spend the next few days looking over those applications and determining if which providers we want to contract with. Those are the people who will manage those specific sites. That will be the first time the cities manage providers. Usually it goes through the county, through the joint office. And we've just had a lot of issues with trying to make sure that those different sites are managed in a way that's transparent to the city, and we're able to work with them closely. We're working on that relationship. I'm very excited about Chair JVP, Jessica Baker-Peterson, working with her staff, also with the new governor, Tina Kotek. We meet with them every other week, and I talk to their staff every single day. So there's a lot of communication happening, which is great. We're just, to Representative Gamba's point, we're lobbying the legislature. They have a lot more resources and a lot of technical expertise on a lot of these issues. You will have seen probably that the governor released her emergency declaration recently. So that was something we were intimately involved in because of our work with emergency management, emergency declarations, and incident command structures that we've stood up over the last year. I'm working on our kind of 2.0 version of our incident command structure that will work directly with the metro-wide emergency management structure that she's created in that emergency declaration. So there's a lot of work happening, but I recognize that there's still a lot to do. I'm a native Portlander, so I love this city and I will keep working very hard on all these different pieces. But I really just encourage folks. There's a lot of questions in the chat about what can be done kind of immediately. I know there's reporting fatigue from a lot of folks, but I will tell you that there's a new dashboard that actually went live today through the impact reduction program and our street services coordination center that should be more interactive and actually is really great at showing where we've posted sites in the last 6 months, 10 days. You can kind of go by time period. Also where sites have been like cleaned. And so you can look out throughout the whole city and see what different colors kind of dots there are and at different areas. And if you're looking at a specific neighborhood, you'll be able to have more immediate information based on that. So sorry, that's a lot of information, but I just wanted to make sure folks had that knowledge.
It appears that Kristen has a hand up.
Hi, yeah, I'm wondering what are the opportunities for us as a neighborhood to collaborate with the city or the state and join in and help to be part of the solution?
Thank you, Kristen. That's an amazing question. I really appreciate that. There are great opportunities. We are also retooling how we engage with the neighborhoods because I really want that increased engagement. So we're working on we've done like some pilot projects of problem solver meetings, we call them. We're looking right now to consolidate our expediting tables and problem solver meetings to really create a robust, kind of get back to like a robust neighborhood association model where folks can help us report what's going on in their neighborhood. You're the eyes and ears, you know better than we do. And we really rely on reporting. So having those meetings actually really helps us understand what's going on, what you need. And then we're creating task forces so that we can actually assign folks to those meetings. It's not just me having to navigate city bureaucracy and make a lot of calls. It's actually going to be specific task force that are assigned to those meetings. So I will just say I can have whoever has is kind of your point person for your neighborhood association. I would like to get them set up kind of with our person who's running those meetings, Ann Hill, who works for the city. So she has a long standing commitment to that work and she would love that engagement.
I'm so glad to hear that because I felt like I was all on my own and didn't know where to talk to and where to send, our residents to have like a satisfying interaction and actually also to see some result because, I mean, you can talk about this posting fatigue, but if someone gets the information, hey, we can't do anything right now, you have to report every single day or every other day, that's not a way of being engaged in it. So we have to find a new pattern of how to do that, also how to collect those information, because it's not, we are all volunteers. This is an additional full-time job, so we need to have a handle of how to do that.
And I'd like to also answer that she had threw the state into that question. And it's an issue that we're wrestling with right now. So there's an intention to build a whole lot more affordable housing, right? Like deeply affordable housing, area median income 30% or below, kind of affordable housing. One of the biggest roadblocks to getting that housing built, and this is what we've experienced around the state for decades, is every time we try and do that, there will be an upset in the neighborhood that is getting sited in. And at the very least, it slows the project down for 2, 3, 4 years and very often kills it. So I can tell you of dozens of different low-income housing projects that didn't get built because of that. So as a neighborhood, that is a thing that, and I have no idea if Portland has any place that they're thinking about locating a, low-income apartment complex in this neighborhood. But keep that in mind. if it should happen, please help support it. And help your other neighbors understand that it's much better to have those folks housed and receiving services than starving and robbing you so that they can eat.
Good. 3 hands, there, 2 and 3.
So, Anna, you spoke about email fatigue, I understand, I have it as well. Part of the issue is, we've been told to raise our ranking, we need to keep reporting. As you report, I gotta tell you, you report to one, I get a response, usually 2 or 3 days later, and they say, you need to go to so-and-so. So I'm talking to 311, I'm talking to Report PDX, I'm talking to the police, and I just get in circles. So that's very frustrating, and that's why I think in the last 4 weeks, you've seen this outcry of people, because it's like, all right, I'm gonna talk to everybody simultaneously. The one suggestion would be if, and you were talking, Skye, about neighborhood associations being stronger. I mean, if there could be one point of contact in the neighborhood association that we could make our reports to, we'll send pictures, we'll give you reports, we'll give you observations of crime and things we're seeing. And those could be collected in a very organized way on a weekly basis and then passed on to the city to one point of contact. I know they talk about one point of contact, but trust me, that's not what we're experiencing. And then with communication going back to everybody who made reports, that I think will help the communication flow. So if one person could be identified. The other is this sort of whack-a-mole issue of we're just moving them from place to place to place. And so how do we institutionalize, for example, I don't know why it works, but it does. Woodstock Park was surrounded by RVs 4 years ago. In fact, unfortunately, a month ago, we had a car that was set on fire. Somebody was living in a car, was set on fire. But they did put up those signs that said no RV parking overnight. And I gotta tell you, in the last 3 years, we haven't had any RVs. We have some of that signage here in Woodstock, but I think we need to have more signage and enforcement of that signage. And that's why I've asked Patrick to be here as a landowner with the Weimar and the Safeway. You know, we need to enforce those things. Otherwise, you know, the frustration is that it just keeps going around in a circle.
Number 2. Jeff. I didn't see it until just after. Go ahead.
Orlando.
Yeah, so, just a bunch of thoughts running through my head. I worked in social service. I retired from Multnomah County in aging and disability. And I remember back when agencies who were doing the work on the ground, helping people, doing food box, whatever, housing, that there would be like a monthly meeting of all agencies that were participating on that level of interaction. And there would be a coordination of, okay, you're doing this and you're doing that. And so everybody was on the same page, or at least they were informed about that page. And I think the city of Portland is let go of any responsibility to its people to have an organized city around what is needed. There's a whole, it's like the whole middle area of coordinating of groups and problems is missing. And so we run around trying to call people and the whack-a-mole or whatever you call it. When the city really hasn't taken responsibility to create an infrastructure of these organizations that are out. There's many good groups out there doing good work, but who hears about them? Who hears about them? Who sees it either on a website or a meeting or anything? You don't. So if you don't hear about this stuff, you don't know about it, and then you can't do anything about it.
Oh, you want to respond?
Well, I do, and I think you all made the very good choice of voting to change the form of government in Portland. I think that's been part of the problem as an outsider looking in. And I can only have Milwaukee to compare it to, right? But the council sets policy. A person is responsible for carrying out that policy. That's the city manager. And she causes all of her departments to work on that policy together. So you get exactly what you're talking about, a much more coordinated effect. The current, and this is again, me speaking as an outsider, but I've had lots of friends on the Portland City Council. The current system there is you've got department heads who are A, elected officials, and B, have no particular, necessarily any particular background in the thing that they are now a department head of. And oh, by the way, that could change in 6 months or in a year or in 18 months. So there's a little bit of a fiefdom effect there, and you don't get, again, sorry, Skye, but my observance is that the coordination has been lacking. And I do think in 2 years, when the new form of government comes in and there's a city manager, that would be the opportunity for that to really start to coalesce. And I know that Mayor Wheeler in our meeting did talk about trying to break down some of those silos and talk about having the various agencies starting to coordinate more. But it's inherent in the form of government, and it's the reason why this was one of 2 cities in the whole country that were being run this way.
All right, I have three hands. I got one online, and one online, and then it's there.
What is the capacity right now for RVs to park in a sanctioned area? What does Portland have right at this moment where somebody that has an RV, they're on their last leg, instead of pulling up next to Safeway, there's a place they can go? And literally, what is the estimated RV count that holds? Are there any plans whatsoever to create something, increase that capacity? And so, what is that increase going to look like per RV count between now and the end of the year?
Yeah, so there's currently none. The reason for that is because no service provider has been willing to actually run that. The city of Vancouver has one, Vancouver, Washington has one RV park, and they had to end up running it themselves with city employees because there's no service provider that would sign on to actually manage it. Folks get scared because of safety reasons. They can't totally patrol if someone is in their RV, what weapons they have, that kind of thing. So service providers often get a little freaked out managing RV safe park areas, understandably so. But one of the reasons we put out an RFP for our own service provision managing, which the city's never done before, is this exact reason. We're realizing that we're dealing with way more RVs and cars and folks in those situations where they really need a safe place to go. And that's a huge part of the issue. So we are the Safe Rest Village program, which is under Commissioner Ryan, but they're trying to open up a camp that they've constructed, and they're trying to get the service provider to be willing to start. That's through the joint office again. And one of the reasons we're getting our own kind of management of provider contracts. Hopefully that's online in the next couple months. That's my hope. The one that I'm working on personally is going to be once I have a contractor actually signed on. Multiple of the sites that I'm talking to with lawyers and property owners right now would be available for RV and car camping specifically. I'm focused on that provision as well. And the service providers I've talked to who did apply for the RFP program are interested in providing that and have provided that in other places. So that's the long and short of it. I would say those 2 should be open in the next 6 months, which is great. However, again, the scale is an issue. So, those both might have 50 each spots for RVs, which is great. However, there's hundreds probably across the city, if not thousands. So we still need to keep chipping away and building more and helping folks get into housing, just as Representative Gamba said, to be able to move along the continuum so they don't need an RV to live in. They can actually move into an apartment or a home.
All right, Michael has a hand raised. Michael, please unmute.
Yeah, sorry. Hi, how's it going? Yeah, I just wanted to echo like a lot of what I've been hearing about like sort of the whack-a-mole and being like sort of lack of coordination. And I've tried really hard to like look into the neighborhood watch and try, because a lot of the crime on our street specifically, and I put a significant amount of effort into that, and I found out later that there wasn't any. And then it's a neighborhood together program. And I had the woman come out. She was super nice and really friendly, but she made it clear there's limits of what, they can do and support. And so she suggested having a block party, and we did it, but it's like a tangential way, and it didn't feel like it addressed acute immediate problems. And so I get hearing that we're sort of having a rough time and we want more representation, but it does feel like whack-a-mole a lot, and like who to talk to, and just the amount of extra time that we invest when we're already really busy doing other stuff, So I just kind of wanted to voice that. I'm still honestly confused about it, and I spent so much time in it. So yeah.
No, thanks, Michael.
Yeah.
So kind of to what I mentioned before, I know I've been speeding through the information, but I will connect Thatch with Ann Hill, who's running our problem solver meetings and our expedited tables. That's kind of our answer to this, what's been happening, where folks are just not sure who they need to talk to, what their point of contact is. We've done some pilot programs with those meetings at different spots around the city. I've participated in the Old Town Neighborhood Association ones every week for a year, and I've seen how those have worked well. So we're trying to expand those to every neighborhood and figure out if Woodstock's part of a larger kind of neighborhood problem solving group, and then you would go to that specific one. So I'll connect Thatch with Ann Hill, and then he'll know which meeting kind of everyone can attend. Those again are going to have those task force members from the team that I work with, that coordinates all the different folks who do the removals and the cleanups and the trash pickup and graffiti removal, that kind of stuff. And then also we'll have folks who work on other issues too, like permitting or, whatever city kind of issue you have, they'll have a person for on the call who can actually respond to that.
And sorry, I did hear that part, but I guess what I was unclear on is like, what is something that I should be doing differently? Like, should I be reaching out, or are you just saying you're going to come to us, I guess?
Well, at least what I can offer is that I can connect. Thatch is the one who's been emailing me, but anyone who's on the neighborhood association who is your main point of contact, I can connect them with this Ann Hill person who's going to be running those meetings, because then they can disseminate that information to tell you exactly when and where you need to go. It'll be a Zoom or Teams meeting, I'm sure, mostly, and then you'd be able to contact all those different folks.
Great, thank you.
I'm happy to be the point of contact.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we got two more hands that I have. Go ahead. One, two.
My name's Marie, and this is kind of what Peggy was talking about related. I'm wondering if we can't use Yankee ingenuity to solve some of the crime problem. I'm told that police are willing to arrest, judges are willing to convict, but we don't have public defenders. But can we use Yankee when we needed somebody to give COVID shots? We trained National Guard when we needed teachers in the schools during COVID. We got parent volunteers in. Can't we do something like that with? Go ahead.
So that's a constitutional thing. You are actually, by the Constitution of the United States, required to have representation when you are charged with a crime. And the representation.
Ingenuity to get representation?
Well, they have to be trained attorneys. right, in order to give qualified representation. And yes, that system is deeply broken. We have,
The Constitution doesn't allow you to go to people's stores and walk out
No, it
without
doesn't.
paying.
it doesn't,
I was home alone, I'm 80 years old. A guy with a crowbar, I met face to face, trying to break into my house, cost thousands of dollars a day. There's got to be a way to address this rather than saying Constitution.
well, there is, and there are a handful of bills I know that are working towards addressing that we should get past this year. It is one of the focuses. It is actually in the high level list along with housing, rent, support, all of those things. So I'm not saying that next week we're gonna have 1,000 new attorneys ready, willing, and able to do that work. But we are starting the first steps of getting, why it hasn't happened up till now, I can't answer that question, but we will be doing that work this year. It's high on the list.
Skye, what I meant to say?
Yeah, so I would just say, yep, we're lobbying the state legislature, so representatives like Representative Gamba to kind of help recreate that system. I'm actually a trained lawyer. I went to U of O Law School, and being a public defender does not pay very well. So a lot of my friends do it, but it's really difficult work. You're given hundreds and hundreds of cases because they don't have enough folks, and then you're also not paid well at all. So it's a really tough job, and I'm really excited about any reforms that can come to actually increase the public defender pool, because we just don't have enough. We haven't had enough for years, but it's gotten so bad. There was also, and this is not helpful, but there was a recent court case that basically said trials that we've had previously, folks who are actually in jail or in prison can retry their cases, and they will require public defenders for those cases. So not only do we have all the folks that we'd like to try and, convict and put in jail for different crimes that are being committed now, we actually now have to go back and other folks can be retried. So it's creating a further strain, and that just happened like a month and a half ago. So there's just a huge overarching issue. I know the governor knows this well. I know a lot of the representatives know this well. We've been making it a huge part of our lobbying effort to the state, because it's just, we need it desperately. We need help now.
I have one question and one request. My question is, under Joan Honesty, RVs that were inhabited could not be removed. Is that still the case?
Nope, that is not the case. So actually PBOT is moved under emergency declaration, the SSCC for abandoned autos, which is the group that I help run that goes out of the mayor's office. So nope, we do an inspection, we post, we talk to folks, we work with outreach workers to try to get them into shelter. But yeah, that's not the case.
Okay, my request, I think what we need most of all from you is timelines. We want to know, when are we gonna have camps? How many people are they gonna hold? When are there gonna be more policemen? So we want to know what you're doing on what timeline.
Yeah, so police, as I think the representative mentioned, we've had the largest recruiting classes that we've had in years. So that's great. However, that takes 18 months for a new officer to get on the ground and fully trained. Again, that DPSST, which is that state training facility, is a huge bottleneck for us. But we're working with the legislature to try to get another training facility, as the representative mentioned. I can't, guarantee there's a lot of ifs here. So like, if we get a training facility through the legislature, obviously that doesn't happen until the money doesn't even come through until the summer. And then that would have to be built, created. You have to get instructors. So that whole process takes time. We are doing, and I mentioned this in the chat, we're using bonuses to encourage lateral transfers. However, there's only so many folks who are kind of willing to become officers in Portland. It's kind of notorious for not being super kind to police officers, especially after 2020. So we have to change the culture, really encourage folks to come join the force. We're working on that as well, just kind of an internal culture shift. And then also with those bonuses. In terms of the designated camping sites, I'm working on real estate transactions currently. So working with property owners and with our lawyers, and I'm hoping the mayor can announce a couple of those sites, if not this month, then early next month. But then it requires we have to do construction. Some of those are ready to, you know, have pallets and then tents on them, but some of them require other construction on that specific site. So each site is different. So I would be making numbers up if I gave you a specific timeline, but I'm very focused on getting this done immediately. I mean, I don't sleep a whole lot. I drink a lot of coffee so that I can make sure that we're actually getting stuff off the ground. I'm working with folks within our bureaus right now to actually develop task force, so we move really quickly on all of these aspects, and move a lot more quickly than we have in the past. So also working with the county to make sure that we can actually do this.
Thank you.
Skylar, I wanted to address the homeless, RV sites you're gonna put together and the homeless camping areas. Are you gonna have some sort of my background is an RN, so do I need to explain triage? So you have functional people. If you have a camp that has a lot of functional people, you aren't gonna have havoc, but if you put functional people in with drug addicts, with alcoholics, with mentally ill, you aren't gonna have anybody who's gonna wanna administer those camps. So I think I'm just suggesting that you do some sort of triage. And I realize we don't have the mental health facilities and we don't have the drug and alcohol. That's unfortunate, but I'd like to suggest that you do more of a triage thing. I think you'll have a lot more success. I think you'll have administrators who, if they're promised that we got police backup, like boom, and get people out, troublemakers, because otherwise campers become victims of other campers when you put them all on. That's
No, I appreciate that. So the model that we're engaged in, and this is more on a PowerPoint on the website if you wanted to look at that, but I'll just say quickly, the model that I've done a lot of research, talked to a lot of folks, visited a lot of states, looking at these specific designated camping areas and different shelter sites. What I've seen that makes a difference and really just clearly is different than what we've been doing is the most congregate shelters in Portland have about a 40-45 to 1 client to staff ratio. So you really can't protect different folks like you're saying. You really would have to triage. What we're looking at is a 15 to 1 model. So for these designated campsites, the service providers we've talked to say that makes a huge difference. You can actually engage with each person. You can really answer their questions. You can actually meet them where they're at, whatever mental or behavioral health issue they're dealing with. It's truly low barrier, but you actually have enough staff to be able to meet the needs of that specific person.
Sonia, do you agree?
Yeah, so many things. I will say that we got a police response in the last 10 days that was within an acceptable timeline. And they actually have been patrolling the neighborhood, which was a huge improvement from the last 2 to 3 years. So that was good news. The 2 things. One, when you go to the city website and try to do an online thing, you have to have a login and a password. And I'm just saying that's a huge barrier. That's ridiculous for something where we need you would need public information coming in. You just need to have a barrier free for us as well to go in. I've got 100 passwords I got to remember and keep track of for my bank accounts and everything else that I ever do. And just having to have one for the city just drives me crazy. So it would be really nice if that could be unlocked so that those sites where we need to go for reporting, we can just do that. And the second is, and this is also part long-term, is the coordination. Like I belong to a church and we're doing all this stuff to help. But there's no way to coordinate with anybody else that's doing anything. So when we had a sweep on 41st, there were actually 2 people that finally got housed out of that. Elderly people with health issues that finally got housed. And so we did some stuff providing meds and household items for where they went to live and so on, and took care of those things. But there's no way for us to coordinate with the people that are housing them. I mean, there's just this random system, and I think there is a lot of potential supports out there. If there was a way for those, all the different churches and other organizations that are doing things to help, support all of that. The long-term piece is, you have to keep people from falling out of housing in the first place. I've talked to enough people that are part of the unhoused group around our church. And they have a problem that occurs, and for whatever reason, they can't figure it out. So they ignore it, and then it starts compounding, and one thing goes to another, and then they're out on the street. And if we had, again, maybe using some of the churches and other organizations, social organizations around, that could be mentors or sort of friends, if you will, that could be partnered with people that have a little bit of a challenge and do some problem solving with them when a barrier comes up before they fall out of their house. So, and then if it's with the church, maybe we can kick in for a utility bill or something, but we can't afford to pay Portland rents either for anybody that's, we encounter. So we have some ways to help, but we need some ways to be connected. And there's got to be a longer term vision about how we keep people housed once we get them housed.
Well, that's a whole question of accessibility that, if I may say so, as a non-American, is really something that startled me tremendously. That there is such a lack of bringing access to the people who are in most need for it. And it's just a kind of system that falls apart. And I honestly, I
can't hear you, people.
I'm in constant fear, since I lived in the United States, because there's so much pressure of survival. And I mean, I don't know how people manage, to be honest. And if there is this one tiny little thing, as Sonia explained, that just really said, like, I can't handle it anymore. And that needs to change. And one of those things is to have not dispersed system of contact, but to have people know where they need to go, to whom they can speak. And that's one of the biggest issues. And Portland is a very specific case in communication co-population, if I may say so.
Just a reminder, our agenda does at 8:20. We're at 8:28, but I do want to make sure.
Yeah.
Your questions. Oh, go ahead.
Could I don't know, the community associations like this association, with the city tried to get rid of this association. Is there any way that we can join together all the community associations within the city, because they have common problems, very common problems, and there's very common solutions, but it seems to me like each community association is like remaking the wheel. If there's a way to get a political action committee, a group of those together, I think we might get more done then.
If I might say so, that actually exists. We have different coalitions. I'm also the liaison for Southeast Uplift. I bring a lot of those things to communicate with the whole of Southeast neighborhoods. There is a houseless committee within the Southeast Uplift that operates on larger levels. But they encounter the exact same problems that we discuss on a small scale level. So we tried to have this kind of brought up. We brought it to many city levels. We brought it to the Office of Civic Life. We tried to talk to the police. Same issues that you encounter on a small scale.
So if we could get some updated, who we should call or email, and we will put it on our website. So if we get that, then we'll put it on our website. And you guys can all go to Woodstock Neighborhood Association. We'll try to have the most up-to-date information there.
Also, if I may say one thing, aside from this reporting and being concerned of these very specific things, I mean, I'm very glad that we have so many people participating in this meeting today. But I would really wish that beyond these kind of moments of crisis, that we have also moments when we come together and say, like, this is what we envision, this is how we understand one another, and this is how we want to shape our neighborhood. And I think that's equally important to actually understand how to be together and to be aware if even your neighbor or someone else in your vicinity starts to have an obstacle, and to just be there. And I think that's one of the things that we can do as a neighborhood. I mean, we try. We often, I know we all had Zoom fatigue with our meetings, but we try to be really on social patterns here. And that's really my request to all of you to participate also in the fun things to create something.
It's really important that, I mean, we have the WNA, the board, we have a few people that are keeping all the communications, trying to get everything going, and we're actually thin on volunteers. So if you're interested in positive and negative, I know we got trying to deal with the certain things that having communication flow and trying to improve those things. We need help with that. We also have fun things we want to do and be a neighborhood. We also need help with that. So if you're interested in all, please contact us. We got resources on the website, and you did have your hand up.
Yes. Nice to meet you. My name is Martin. I've lived here for 2 years. And I just want to make comments based upon yours, and that is that there's 50 of us here. We have 50 different opinions about what's happening, why it's happening, what's going to happen, what I want to happen, what I need to happen, blah, blah, blah. I personally think this is never getting better ever again, but that's for national reasons that we don't have to discuss this. We certainly heard people trying to problem solve. Well, guess what? There are no easy answers to be done. Why every answer you've gotten has been, well, you know, in 2 years, and we definitely heard is nothing's going to happen in 2 years. So, or 2 years. What I hope, my vision for the neighborhood is to instantiate what you said, but broaden it, and that is to share how we can live with this. We all have different needs and wants and desires. That some people simply cannot defend themselves. Other people are worried about noise. Other people, all sorts of things. And what I think we can do, instead of trying to grasp for straws to give policy solutions to people who can't implement them for all sorts of reasons we don't need to get into, what we can do is talk about how we can make our life better together. What do we need? Do we engage with people who are living on the street? Do we not? Do we help them? Do we not? We all can have different reasons and different things, but one thing for sure, if we do not leave, then we are going to live here for 2 years, and nothing will change in that time other than what we can do for ourselves without others outside of this. If we can make that model work, then perhaps we can, on a larger scale, make it work. But it doesn't matter if we can make it work or not, because we have to live, we have to, whether we can make it. That's what I would hope that people here would want. I don't know what everyone else wants, but that is what I want. I want more meetings to talk about this person knows about these things, talk to them about this. This person knows about these things. People want to do this, and less stories and less making up things of magical solutions that will never exist. That's it. I have to leave because I didn't convince myself. Good night. I love you all.
So I just want to share that we need to actually vote on something fun, which is whether we're going to apply for a summer free for all in the Woodstock Park, like we did last year, which was the movie, if any of you went. We did it Labor Day weekend. We had about 600 people come. It was great fun. And the city is asking us again if we want to do that. We have to have our application in by February 3rd. It will take $1,000 contribution by us again. And we can choose like more of a concert, cultural thing or movie. And last year we had talked about this year, we were maybe go for the music culture.
Yes, we did.
Why don't we go ahead and
city by, thank you. State Representative, yeah. Guys, thank you so much for hanging around
Yeah.
and